Mr. Robinette, or Renetto, is a man who I admire. He has great personal courage for speaking as he did about his family's struggle with addiction. His video, I'm Finally Ready to Talk About It, inspired me to address the topic of substance use and addictions. I won't speak directly to his experience, except to say that I hope he and his wife aren't relying solely on the guidance of 12-step programs. 12-step programs are effective for many people, but for other individuals they are less so. Some addictions counselors question whether a 12-step program can ever give you ownership of your sobriety. But I wouldn't presume to give you or your wife advice on dealing with addictions, except the very general advice that I've found to be helpful in all areas of life. Keep trying, and remember that trying something new isn't giving up. I always intended to do a Utopia Now video on addictions. It's an issue that's very important to me, and one which I've given a great deal of thought to. But it seemed to me less important than other topics. Renetto's video reminded me just how important it is. Prohibition failed because of a lack of understanding regarding alcoholism. This misunderstanding extends to the war on drugs that we are fighting today. The misunderstanding can be couched in economic terms as a confusion between supply and demand. Most people see addictions as a supply problem. Get the drugs or the booze off the street, and that will solve the issue. But really, addictions are a demand problem. Our goal in fighting addictions must be to eliminate the demand for drugs and alcohol. How do we do that? There are lots of ways, but before I start discussing them, I want to mention the harmful effects of dealing with these issues from the supply end. Prohibition of drugs or alcohol creates crime. Many addicts will seek out their drug of choice, regardless of the consequences. That's evident as their addictions cause them to lose their jobs, their friends, their families, and even their lives. A fine or jail term is nothing compared to that, especially when drugs are more often available inside correction systems than outside. But I digress. Corrections is another episode in itself. So, prohibition makes criminals of the users. It also adds a cachet to the substance, a cachet especially attractive to rebellious youth who are naturally testing their boundaries. Prohibition also makes criminals of the suppliers. It creates a huge underground and unregulated market. This market drives the prices for the substances upwards. The higher prices mean that addicts are more likely to turn to crime to fund their now more expensive habit. When we hear that such and such an amount of drugs has been seized by the police, we cheer. But while we cheer, we should also be cringing slightly, because the street price just went up as demand has remained steady but supply has decreased. Prohibition gives money to criminals who can then use that money for other nefarious ends like gang wars or corrupting officials. So what's the other option? A lot is said for and against harm reduction strategies. The purist within me says that we can't enable deeds that are wrong, but the pragmatist in me says that outright prohibition doesn't work, and neither does attacking the supply line of drugs. This is a real-world problem, so I'm inclined to listen to my pragmatic side. What is the pragmatic solution? Possession of a small amount of pot shouldn't be a criminal offense, it should be a fine. There's no reason a teenager with a dime bag in his backpack should end up with a criminal record. Yes, to needle exchanges. It's a simple case of an ounce of prevention equaling a pound of cure. If the users clean up, does our society really want to treat them for Hep C or AIDS for the rest of their lives? Legalize all drugs? No, that's silly. These decisions have to be made on a drug-by-drug basis, weighing all sides, but the issue of moral right can't be allowed to bias our thinking. Wrong deeds will be committed. It's our obligation to limit their harm. A good analogy is a toddler who's taken to knocking over an end table. You tell him not to, you watch him as best you can, but just in case, you don't leave a china tea set on the table. Harm reduction works in reducing the harmful effects of destructive behaviors, but the policies must be employed as part of a coordinated strategy which seeks to eliminate the destructive behaviors in the first place. We need to address the causes of addiction, and we need to recognize that those causes are the problem, not the self-destructive behavior. So what are the causes? Many addictions stem from a psychological basis, and for these addictions, that basis needs to be addressed. To do that, we need a massive increase in the number of therapists and counselors trained to deal with addictions, and the government needs to employ them in programs that are free and easy to access no matter where you are. Where should the money come from? Tax alcohol and give every cent raised from those taxes to addiction programs. Every dollar we spend that halts an addiction will save us money in the long run. Addicts are like invisible cracks in a vase that let the water seep out so slowly that we don't even recognize where the puddle on the sideboard is coming from. Addicts end up in jails and hospitals and dysfunctional families, who raise children more likely to end up in jails and hospitals with social problems of their own. But we also have to recognize that compulsory addiction counseling is a waste of money. The addict must want to help themselves. Well, what does that mean? Should we just let them ruin their lives until they realize that they need help? Sadly, yes, that is what I'm saying. But we can help them get to that point faster, and this is the main spike of the multi-pronged approach that I'm proposing. The other causes of addictions are hotly debated. Are addicts born or made? Or to what extent does environment or genes play a role? The conclusion of the nature-nurture debate isn't either or, it's both. Whether addictions are learned behaviors, genetically programmed, or genetic predispositions which require an environmental cue is inconsequential. The solution is the same: social prohibition. I don't mean a movement which seeks to reinstate legal prohibition. I'm talking about an effort from all sectors of society to create a social stigma connected to substance use. If it's in the genes, then the eventual elimination of drugs from society will limit the harm. A chocolate addict may ruin his health, but he won't cause car accidents. If addictions are learned behaviors, then our children will have more examples of healthy attitudes. This type of thing works. I live in Ontario, and our government has been tackling the tobacco industry with surprising success. They've made headway by limiting tobacco advertising, by limiting where you can smoke, by incrementally raising taxes on tobacco, just slowly enough that bootleggers don't become too attractive, and by leading an awareness campaign not just on the health effects of smoking, but also reminding people of the negative social perception that non-smokers have for smokers. Go to stupid.ca to see what I mean. Such a program greatly outweighs any societal endorsement that comes along with harm reduction programs, if you believe in such a thing. We need to employ these same tactics against all substance use. Notice that I say use, not abuse. There is already a stigma against strong drug use, but the stigma surrounding pot is nearly non-existent, and experimenting with other drugs like hallucinogenic mushrooms, acid, and ecstasy are seen as just a part of growing up. We need to, as a society, choose to make these behaviors unacceptable. The power of taboo is astonishing. It has successfully suppressed many harmful and benign practices throughout history. In the vacuum of church leadership, we haven't been creating new taboos to deal with new problems. We can, as a secular society, consciously do this. As David Suzuki points out, we did it with public spitting. What would this mean? First, no drug humor. The delivery of a well-timed joke might cause us to chuckle, but there's nothing funny about drugs. I'm not calling for censorship. I'm an advocate for free speech. What I'm saying is that comics want laughs, and they'll follow your lead. Write letters to the editor when you see something you don't like. Talk to your friends about it. Talk to your family. Don't be afraid to take a stand. You don't have to preach, just hold the opinion. For such a taboo to really work, though, it has to address the issue of substance use in our culture as a whole.